This lioness was dying. A large bone had become lodged deep inside her upper jaw, making it so painful that she couldn't even drink water. To make matters worse, she hadn't eaten for nearly 2 weeks. If the bone wasn't removed soon, she wouldn't survive. Then wildlife ranger Haley noticed something was wrong. She loaded a tranquilizer dart into her rifle and fired, striking the lioness in the hindquarters. Within minutes, the lioness collapsed into a deep sleep. To make sure the anesthesia had taken full effect, Haley gently prodded her with the rifle. Once she was certain the lioness was completely unconscious, she began an emergency surgery right there in the African wilderness dot using a wrench and a hammer. Haley carefully worked at the bone until it finally came loose. The smell was overwhelming. The bone had turned black, a clear sign it had been trapped inside her mouth for a very long time. Without treatment, the lioness would have slowly starved to death. But removing the bone was only the beginning. After weeks without enough food or water, she was dangerously weak. The team stayed beside her, standing guard throughout the night because hyenas would have quickly attacked a defenseless lioness. The next morning, Haley returned to check on her, and her heart sank. The lioness should have awakened hours earlier, but she still hadn't moved. As the African sun climbed higher, the heat became relentless. Her breathing was shallow, and her pulse was barely detectable. The team parked their vehicle beside her to create shade and protect her from the scorching sun. Prolonged starvation had pushed her body to the brink of failure. There was nothing left to do except wait and hope. Haley placed fresh water beside the lioness, but there was no response. Then she gently inserted a soft tube into the lioness's mouth and slowly fed her water. At first, nothing happened. Then finally, the lioness began swallowing on her own. The moment Haley saw her drink, relief spread across her face. She continued giving her water again and again, determined not to give up. As the sun rose higher, the vehicle's shadow was no longer enough. The team quickly set up a makeshift canopy on the roof to keep the lioness cool. By early afternoon, even that wasn't sufficient, so they carefully moved her beneath a nearby tree. To lower her body temperature, Haley gently poured water over her slowly. The lioness began to regain her strength. She lay quietly, her eyes fixed on the woman who had saved her life. Then, for the first time, she tried to eat on her own. As the tree's shadow shifted throughout the day, the team kept repositioning her to protect her from the sun eventually. She gathered all the strength she had left and pushed herself onto her front legs. She tried to stand, but her weakened back legs collapsed beneath her, and she fell back to the ground. Night came once again. More than 24 hours had passed since the tranquilizer had been administered. Then, at around 1 o'clock in the morning, with everyone watching in silence, the lioness finally stood on her own. Her first steps were slow and shaky, like a cub learning to walk for the very first time. She slowly made her way toward the nearest water source. Haley quietly followed behind in the truck, keeping a careful watch over every step. At last, the lioness reached the water's edge and took a long, refreshing drink. She had survived.